Michael, how you want to just skip over and hit this and then come back to planning and zoning?
Yes, sir, we need to go ahead with.
Yeah, we got to do
schedule
that
public
one, and I can
hearing.
get this one, and we'll have time between these two.
We need to do the two public, the advertised public hearings at 11, 11:15.
Yeah, I'm
and then
fixing
move
to
back
jump on to
these.
11, then we just swing back to the other one. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, Michael, public hearing at 11.
Yes, so this is a public hearing for the board to consider increasing its current gas tax from 5 cents to 6 cents. The purpose of that is to qualify the county for some additional grant funding opportunities that exist today that I don't believe existed in 1997 when the board first enacted its 5-cent tax. And I've got Mr. Clay Smallwood, who is the representative for an engineering firm here. He's familiar with these different grants, and he can explain to you the two grants that are available to you now with the 5 pennies. And then if you do enact the additional 1 penny, there's a new grant out there called a SCRAP grant. It's 100% funding, and he can give you the detailed information on all those various grants that are available. In terms of how much additional revenue that would be generated, that 1 penny would generate an additional $50,000 to the county if you should enact it. And Mr. Smallwood, if you would explain to the board.
Yes, sir.
There are two grants right now, and I can't remember the names and the acronyms, but one is a 50% funded grant, the other is a 75% funded grant that is available to the county with the current 5-cent tax, and then there's this 100% funded grant that would be available if they should enact this additional 1 penny. So if you would give the board the information on that.
That's right. The two programs that y'all currently tap into through DOT are what we call CIGP and SCOP, and those both are acronyms that stand for basically small counties and being able to do road work with grant monies through DOT. So those are two you currently tap into on a yearly basis. We apply every spring and then go through that process, and DOT gets it in their 5-year work program. One of the requirements of SCRAP, which is a third grant funding from DOT, is that you max out your local option gas tax to be eligible for that. So in the past, you haven't been eligible for that. If you wanted to become so, this would be a step in that direction. The SCRAP program, very similar to SCOP and CIGP. It's for road work. The wording is in the Florida statute for construction or reconstruction of county roadways. And so there's some other criteria you have to meet in there, but you should have no problem with that. It's a 100% funded grant. Similar process to what you already do. You apply in the spring to DOT, and then they review them, rank them, and get them in their 5-year work program.
Now, you had mentioned to me in our phone conversation that there's like a large and a scrap.
They
that
have
may
been
be
the
able to
last.
qualify for both grants at the same time.
So the last 4 or 5 years, under the SCRAP program, DOT has been asking for 2 projects. One larger project, a couple $1 million, and then one project is $100,000 or less. And so they've actually been doing that and have been funding both scenarios, large and small projects. So you'd be eligible for both of those applications.
Okay, very good, thank you. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Smallwood? Yes,
No,
ma'am.
I have a question of you.
Yes, ma'am.
You say that the ordinance we have now goes out on the 5 cents gas tax. You say it goes out January 1, 2000.
It expires on December 31st, 2017.
December
Yes, ma'am.
31st. So we will be revisiting this in December, January?
That depends on
Unless
what
we
the
take
board
care of it
does
today.
today. If the board takes no action today, then you must take some action next year prior to the statutory deadlines that you have to meet in order to consider continuing the existing tax or increasing the tax. If you were to take no action today, then by June 1st of next year, you would have to adopt a new resolution to send to the Department of Revenue noticing your intent to extend the tax, increase the tax. And if you don't meet that deadline, then this tax will expire on December 31st. If you do next year, assuming you don't do anything today, but if you do pass the resolution next year, you would then have to pass the ordinance by October 1st of next year for collection beginning January the 1st. The Department of Revenue has this very staggered and strict schedule of things that you must accomplish locally in order for the tax to go into effect. But all of these taxes always go into effect on January 1st of each year, and they always expire on December 31st of this year. That would be true of your TDC tax, that would be true of your hospital surtax as well as this gas tax.
But
Thank
if they vote
If you-
affirmatively,
If-
then
but
that
if the
takes
board-
care of the.
Yeah, if the board votes today, then you would be not only increasing the gas tax, and it's not for the purpose of collecting the additional $50,000. That's never been the board's intent. The intent is to qualify for these scrap funds that we know are out there and we see other counties getting. In fact, Franklin County, I believe, is probably, if we're not the last county in the state of Florida with a 5-cent gas tax, we're probably in the last 2 or 3. So everyone else is accessing these scrap funds for the most part, except for us. We're not qualified because we have not maxed out our local option gas tax. So again, the purpose is to open up additional grant revenues so that we can have monies available for increased road paving, increased road improvements that just aren't available to us at this time. But if you do pass it today, then it would go into effect as a 6-cent gas tax on January the 1st, and it would be extended out for an additional 20 years. Frankly, under the statute, you do have an option of extending it a maximum of 30 years. Since the original enactment was 20 years, and I'm only proposing an additional 20, if you should move forward, to be consistent with what the board did in 1997.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
Just want to make some clarification. Here. The SCRAP program, Small County Road Assistance Program, as we call it, is through DOT. The two criteria is one. You have to have one of the two. The two criteria is 8 mills levy on your taxes, or your 6 cents gas tax. That's one of the two. And how much did you say it was going to generate, Alan?
Only about $50,000 a year.
Only about 50,000 per year. I can tell you. Well, anyway, we need to listen to public comment, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Yes.
Also, in reading the tax here, the proceeds of this tax shall be expended for road-based materials, road construction, paving, and resurfacing. That's it.
Correct.
It can't be put aside to do anything else with other than paving road. That's all it can do. And as you're referring to the 67 counties in the state of Florida, I think there were 2 that is not at 6% on their gas tax, and we're one of those 2, as Mr. Sugar was referring, 2 or 3. So the scrap program is being distributed across the state, except for our county and one more. So, you know, to levy a 6-cent tax instead of a 5-cent tax and get a $2 million road and a $100,000 road every year, which basically says that we're going to collect another $50,000 of gas tax if we go to 6 cents instead of 5, which is paid not only by the residents, but everybody that comes through Franklin County that buys a gallon of gas. That helps pave these roads and do some upgrades to the infrastructure. I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I was going to remind the board and the public is that in the 28 years I worked for the board, that most of your large road paving segments of road have been through DOT-funded projects. All your major roads in Franklin County have not been with your local ad valorem taxes because you don't generate, your local gas tax, you don't generate enough. It's we go after, with the help of Progress, our engineering firms, to design roads and seek funds to pave the long segments of road that are eligible. Mill Road is an example. The Bluff Road project, all your big roads you've seen, Ballpoint Road, all the big roads that you have seen paved in Franklin County have not been with the local gas tax money by and large. It's been with these outside funds because the state of Florida generates a lot more money than we do, and so we need to access those things because of Ballpoint example, $1.2 million. Well, it will take us 4 years to renovate $1.2 million in local gas tax funds. So we need these state funds to help us maintain the roads that you all use on a daily basis.
And again, if I might, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
back when the money was flowing and things were good, this county was setting aside $1 million a year into road paving. Well, since the real estate bubbles burst and everything else, we set aside nothing for road paving. So again, this program would help replenish and give us the ability to pave more roads without having to take it out of ad valorem taxes. So to me, it's a win-win for the taxpayer and it's a win-win for the people of the county. I know we do have to have public comment, so I'll settle with that.
And follow up on Mr. Pierce's commentary, just so the board knows, your current 5-cent gas tax generates, for the county, $258,000 annually. So you're talking about increasing that through an estimate of $308,000. As you just heard Mr. Pierce say, that one small segment, Ballpoint Road, was $1.2 million. And you've got 70 miles of coastline and roads that this board is trying to tend to. So, you know, if the board were to consider this, it would allow you to leverage for that $50,000, perhaps millions of dollars. But we do need public comment, Mr. Chairman.
Any public comments? Any public comments? No public comments.
I make a motion that we move forward with a 6-cent tax instead of a 5-cent tax on the per gallon of gas.
Got a motion second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
All right, Mr. Chairman, is the board ready to proceed into the next public
We
hearing?
need to step into the next one.
Your next public hearing is for the board to consider an ordinance that would ban in the, what we call, generally speaking, the Lanark Village area. It would ban air guns, all BB guns, air guns, slingshots, and bows and arrows. Mike, could you hand this to the board, please? I've sent this photograph to you by email, but it visually depicts for you in general terms the area where the ordinance would be in effect. And it's what we refer to as the old apartment section of Lanark Village. There is a state statute on the books that prohibits the county from regulating firearms. So no firearms should be regulated by this ordinance, but air guns, BB guns, things of that nature, pellet guns are not considered to be firearms. So you're not prohibited. The board has the discretion to move forward in adopting this ordinance if you should choose to. Does the board have any comments for me? Any questions before we move forward?
Any comments?
I'd like to hear some public comment on this before I comment.
Any, Gerald, do you have any comments?
No.
You have
Public
any?
comment?
Don't listen to the public.
Any public comments?
That's it. That's the only one.
Commissioners and Michael, thank you so much for allowing me to talk. As you know, I proposed this ordinance for Lanark. We have a considerable problem that exists in the village because of the closeness of the residents. We're stacked in rows. And this, for those of you who may not know what Lanark Village is like, it is a community that is a leftover of the Camp Gordon Johnson facilities that housed civilians that supported the base in World War II. These buildings are very close together. They adjoin each other. We're affixed in rows, and there is no room for the like of discharge of projectiles such as BB guns and arrows and slingshots and the like. And it has been a problem. We've had some children and we've had the police called, and unfortunately our sheriff's department their hands are tied because Florida law says that an air gun can be discharged in Franklin County as long as they're under the supervision of an adult. And of course, the adult's not going to let his kid get his hands slapped, so he speaks up for his kids. Well, hell, my kid was supervised and nobody got hurt. Well, somebody's going to get hurt. And we've had a lot of issues with unsupervised children whose parents just look the other way and let them roam the neighborhood. We've had adults actually go squirrel hunting in Lanark Village that we've had to stop, which is totally illegal, but the idea that they think that they can go around and discharge projectiles willy-nilly throughout our village is unconscionable. And common sense just doesn't prevail, so we need an ordinance to enforce common sense. And I thank the commission for their quick action on this, and Michael, thank you for the time you put into it.
You're welcome. This is Richard Frable.
Any more
Yeah.
public comments?
I had a question with Mr. Frable, if I could.
Would you come back up, sir?
I'm sorry, Mr. Frable, I don't know if I was too slow on the uptake or you were too quick walking, one or the other.
I'm
but
good.
Have there been any like vandalism or damage? I mean, little kids shooting out street lights or busting windows? I mean, what
Well,
kind of problems
shooting
were
at, they were observed shooting at. We had one citizen actually complained because he saw the kids out there shooting these things indiscriminately into the air up and down the village at hitting things with it, buildings and whatnot. And he called the police. He got after the parents who, it started a verbal altercation, so he turned around and went and called the sheriff's department. And the sheriff's department was very quick in responding, but unfortunately, their hands were tied. They didn't see any visible damage. Nobody came out and said, my property got damaged, but they were observed discharging them. A pellet gun, as you know, as some of you may know, is a perfectly capable hunting weapon. It'll kill a squirrel, it'll kill a rabbit. There are air guns that can bring down a deer. They manufacture them. And Florida law sees air guns as not being firearms. So they are and can be a very dangerous weapon in a very close environment.
Have they been like shooting at people's, I'm trying to figure out what damage, are they shooting house pets? Are they shooting cars? What are they?
Well, this particular group of children that we've had who, at the moment, do not reside in the village, were a bit of a terrorizing agent throughout the village. They were going down to the lake and they were spearing fish and crabs, just killing things to be killing them. They were causing disruptions in the neighborhoods through their late-night bicycle riding through people's properties and this kind of thing. They were going around at night and firing off BB guns, and it didn't
So
matter.
you and the young'uns
It didn't
are
matter.
having a problem.
Well, right at the moment, our youngins are
No, that's what
not
I'm
living
saying.
in the
You and
village.
You and the little kids, and you're having a problem.
Well, sure.
Yeah,
The
that's what I'm
village is.
asking.
Yeah, the village is, yes.
Well,
Because
no,
they're unsupervised. And this has been not just one family. This has been a couple of families with kids. Again,
It's all over the world.
yeah, well, yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Can I say something?
Yes,
Go
sir.
ahead.
Was this advertised?
Yes, sir.
And number one complaint?
No, sir,
Motion-
it's not one complaint.
Motion to deny.
It has not been just one complaint.
Motion to deny.
Well, okay.
Do it the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, may I, because we had a couple of issues on there. I haven't heard any commentary about bow and arrows and the slingshots. Have there been problems with that as well, or just?
Well, no, that was a preemptive request on my part, because knowing the problems that we've had with them,
Okay,
we're concerned that they just move on to something different.
okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Frable.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Is there any other public comment?
I was gonna ask him a few questions, but
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Frable. I didn't realize the commission.
I got a motion to deny.
okay, let me have my comment.
Okay.
I too have trouble, these kids are responsibility of their parents. They are responsible for these kids until they're 18 years old and no longer a minor. I don't understand, I called the sheriff's department yesterday and they reported no issues in our village. I'm saying, do we got a problem out there I'm not aware of? I grew up with a BB gun. I grew up with a slingshot. I never shot nobody's windows or shot at nobody because I know what mom and daddy would do for me. I know what mom and daddy do for me. Now, today's society is different, but it's not different because the parents are still responsible for the actions of their kids.
Well, that's been our issue in the village, and there's nothing to prevent them from moving back into the village, unfortunately. But
But the parents are responsible, sir.
I know, I
And there
understand.
are ordinances already on the book as far as criminal mischief and all these other things. And there are charges that could be brought against the parents if they're allowing their kids to have this type of stuff unsupervised.
Well-
So it all falls back to the parent. Do you think, I'm trying to justify this. If we pass this ordinance, which basically is a law, do you really think the sheriff's gonna come out there and lock up a 7, 8-year-old youngin'? I don't
Well,
think so.
It's my
He's
understanding.
going for the parents that are responsible for those kids, that are responsible for them until the time they're no longer a minor. I too don't see any
Well, it's my
justification
understanding
for
that
enacting
there
this
is-
ordinance. If you allow me to speak, sir.
I'm sorry.
I allowed you to speak.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to be allowed to say an opportunity. I too don't see any sense in passing this ordinance when there's already stuff on the books. These parents are responsible for these children. And on that, I'm gonna second the motion to deny.
Well, respectfully, sir, I agree with you, the parents are responsible, but the parents have not been held accountable by anybody.
Well, you go talk to them, tell them, take them out behind the house, and give them what they need. Have them vote to second on the floor, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. We're gonna
Motion
take a
second concludes
5-minute
public
recess.
I would just like to say something, though it happens so quick, but that's okay. The one thing that gave me a little bit of heartburn, and I've talked to Michael about it, is when you say that it is hereby ordained that the use of all air guns, slingshots, and bows and arrows in the Lanark Village would not be able to be used. What do you call about them little bows and arrows that everybody uses? That would be prohibited if you put it in there. That little bow and arrow that little fella gets for Christmas, yeah, that would be prohibited. I think we're getting too much into this, but anyway, go ahead.
And the state says it's not a
It is.
weapon.
It is.
Board of County Commissioners now back in session. Ms. Kristen Bell, you come forward, please.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for dipping into the trust fund so that nurses at Weems Memorial can go home and feed their families. Commissioner Sanders, I could kiss you right now because I feel like there's a voice that is finally fighting for us. Commissioner Lockley, I want to point my attention to you for a second because I've reviewed several archives in Apalachicola Times dating back to 2013, and the question that you continue to pose is benefits for our employees. And I want to thank you for that because currently we don't have any. There's no incentive if we build a new hospital for other nurses to come here and work. We don't have a retirement fund, which generates for future. They've taken holiday pay. If I'm away from my family on Christmas morning, my son, I feel like I should be compensated for that. There are times in the ER we don't get lunch breaks. We work 12-hour shifts. Nobody comes and relieves us for lunch. So there are some issues that need to be handled. But my main topic today, I want to say that I've been a nurse for 11 years, and I've witnessed a lot of changes in healthcare, not for the good, particularly violence in the workplace against nursing staff. I stand before you today as a very determined and concerned nurse of this county. Regretfully, I'm here alone because others fear retaliation, but rest assured my same concerns and fears are shared with my co-workers and fellow nurses. A couple weeks ago, a hospital in Titusville called Parrish, which is a small hospital like ours, had an unfortunate event take place. A man entered a patient's room, killing a nurse and an elderly patient. Had it not been for security officers holding the suspect down until police arrived, there's no way to predict what could have happened or innocent lives that could have been lost. This happened in my hometown county of Brevard. My former coworkers are now afraid to return to work and had all made the same statement. You see things like this on the news, and you never think it can happen at your facility until it's too late. Parrish is fortunate enough to have security. As I'm well aware, most of you know, that Weems Memorial has little to no security to protect the healthcare staff that provide service to our sick and indigent of this county. We do go to work sometimes afraid. At night shift, we have been afraid, and we are more so ever afraid on night shift. We have a huge drug problem in our community, and we store a lot of pharmaceuticals just as every hospital does. Without security, we're at a huge risk of being robbed or falling victim to one of our staff members being physically injured. In the nursing profession, we have already gotten accustomed and think it's norm to be spat on, verbally abused, threatened because a doctor won't fill a narcotic prescription from a surgery 5 years ago. We've been afraid of patients and erratic family behaviors and had to call Sheriff's Department many a times, which they respond promptly. And I want to extend my appreciation to Franklin County Sheriff's Department as well as Apalachicola Sheriff's Department. I've been in contact with Brad Segree as well as Bobby Barnes to try to address this issue. Per OSHA guidelines, a nurse is 4 more times likely to be physically abused than any other profession. A lot of incidents do go unreported. OSHA has also reported 100%, 100, that means every nurse, that has been interviewed from all states have been verbally assaulted at work. Violence against nurses is at an epidemic level. As some of you might have heard, Sunday morning, July 19th, 2016, around 5:30 a.m., one of our own dietary employees were accosted by a schizophrenic patient in the parking lot. He lunged at her, and luckily, after warning him that she had a handheld taser, he backed off. she was able to get away without harm. The next time, someone might not be so lucky. Stress, abuse, and injuries are the most common factors that drive some healthcare professionals to leave their job. An estimated cost to replace a registered nurse is between $27,000 and $103,000, not to mention personal lawsuits for injury or workman's comp while on the job. What about the innocent patient or family member waiting in the lobby, a tourist perhaps, to receive care and happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time? Can we afford a lawsuit? I think not. Florida is one of the #1 5 states for violence in healthcare setting, and I believe it's past time to address this situation and provide the healthcare staff at Williams Memorial that serve the residents of this community with adequate protection and security. I have pamphlets from OSHA, if you'd like to see them, with statistics about workplace violence in healthcare. As you can see, if you'll pay attention to the last page, violence in workplace comes at a very high price. Per OSHA and Emergency Nurses Association, panic buttons have found to be the single most affected of violence prevention in a hospital. Mobile panic buttons or duress mobile systems attached to your scrubs and are very similar to panic buttons that bank tellers use. So they alert authorities in the event of something traumatic or if you feel that you're being threatened. The question I keep running into is who's going to pay for this? I have addressed my whole admin team at Weems, Mike Cooper. When I went to him a couple weeks ago, he told me that lighting had been ordered for the outside. However, he was unable to tell me when it would go up or where exactly it would be placed. And he also told me he could not afford to hire a couple security guards so a couple nurses could feel safe at nighttime. The question, surely in this county, if we're able to qualify and apply for grants for a new library, historic preservation, and park improvements, we're able to apply for a grant to place some sort of protection for the workers of our critical care access hospital. Not saying all just mentioned are not of importance, but in my opinion, of no greater importance than the safety and lives of our nurses. I have been in contact with OSHA, Homeland Security, and government grants, trying to find a grant for which we would qualify. Please help me with this fight. We don't want to be another statistic on the news. Thank you for listening, and I have faith that all of you will come to a resolution to help protect us at Weems.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, may I
Yes,
ask a
ma'am.
question of Ms. Bell?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Bell, have you brought, you said you took the lighting situation to Mr. Cooper.
Yes, ma'am.
You took all the situation?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. The morning that I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. The morning
What was his
that
response?
his response was he couldn't afford to hire security guards so a couple of nurses could feel safe at nighttime. I had a witness with me that's not employed by the hospital that heard him say that, and he did reassure me he had ordered lighting, was unable to tell me how much it cost, where it would go, and when it would be put up. I emailed the whole administration team the night that one of our dietary workers was lunged at, and so that they know. I've emailed Mike Mock, I've emailed the Sheriff's Department, OSHA, Homeland Security. We're just asking the camera that is in the lobby of the ER when you come in, it doesn't record. So in the event something catastrophic happened, we wouldn't even be able to identify. We've had a lot of scary instances in the ER where I've had to call, and I won't open those double doors until sheriff calls. And I'm just trying to prevent one of us from seriously, or an innocent patient, innocent patient on the floor, from getting hurt.
Any more questions?
We're gonna check into it.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much
So the-
again.
So the camera's not working in there?
Yes, sir, it works, but it doesn't record. It only allows us, we have a big screen back behind the nurse's station, and what it does is it projects who comes in and out, but it doesn't actually, it's no surveillance, and it's the only camera in house. So at nighttime, on the back lobby where you come in through outpatient stuff, sometimes if we don't have patients on the floor, that wing is locked down. I don't even think we have an alarm system. Someone could break in, that hospital's old. Somebody could break in over there. We wouldn't even know they were over there until it was too late, until they got to the ER.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
let's do this, because, we're gonna have a workshop, but their safety means the utmost anything to
We
me.
put that in the workshop.
But what I'm saying, let's direct Michael Morone to go out there and speak to Mr. Cooper and the plant operation manager and see what can be taken, what steps can be taken in the interim to secure it a little bit more safe for them out there at the hospital.
motion also?
Yeah,
Have a
let's make
motion,
that-
have a motion and second on the floor, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristen.
Yes, sir.